My name is Eric, and this is the story of how my life took a turn I could have never predicted. It began years ago, but the scars it left are still fresh. Even now, I sometimes question if it was all just a nightmare or the cruelest twist of fate. 10 years ago, I was a man who believed in family, love, and trust. My wife, Marissa, was the woman I once adored. She was confident, beautiful, and always knew how to light up a room. But over time, I began to see the cracks in her perfection, signs of something dark lurking beneath the surface. We had been married for 7 years. I never doubted her loyalty. I thought we were partners, a team. Sure, our marriage wasn't perfect, but whose is? I believed that as long as we communicated and worked on things together, we could get through anything. What I didn't know was that I was the only one trying. Looking back, the signs were there. Subtle changes that I dismissed as nothing. Marissa started dressing up more often, even when she wasn't going anywhere special. She spent more time on her phone, laughing at messages she never cared to share with me. And then there was that growing distance, a coldness I couldn't quite explain, but I brushed it off. I told myself I was overthinking things. One night, I came home from work, tired but happy to be home. Marissa was unusually cheerful. She had cooked dinner, lit candles, and even poured my favorite wine. It wasn't her usual and different demeanor. She was almost too nice. It should have been a red flag, but instead, I let my guard down. She smiled across the table and said, "Eric, I've been thinking about us. I want to make things exciting again." I was taken aback but hopeful. Maybe she wanted to fix what had been feeling off lately. "Let's plan a trip, just the two of us," she suggested. The idea sounded great, but little did I know. This wasn't about reconnecting. It was a distraction, a cover-up. A week later, everything unraveled. I came home early from work to surprise her. She didn't hear me come in, and when I walked into the living room, I saw her on a video call. The look on her face froze me in place. She was laughing, twirling her hair, and whispering words that no married woman should be saying to another man. When she noticed me, her expression changed instantly. She ended the call so fast. She nearly dropped her phone. "Eric, you're home early," she stammered, her voice trembling. I stood there, feeling like the ground had been ripped out from under me. "Who was that?" I asked, my voice steady but cold. She tried to brush it off, saying it was just a friend from work, but I wasn't buying it. My gut told me the truth I didn't want to face. Over the next few days, I started digging. I went through her phone, her emails, anything I could get my hands on. And that's when I found it. The proof. Texts, photos, even hotel bookings. Marissa wasn't just cheating. She was having an affair with a married man from her office. The confrontation was ugly. She didn't deny it. In fact, she had the audacity to blame me. "You've been so boring, Eric." I needed excitement. "You don't understand what I want," she shouted. Her words cut deeper than anything I ever felt. I was shattered, humiliated, and completely lost. That was 10 years ago. After the divorce, I tried to move on, but the betrayal left a hole in my heart that never fully healed. I hadn't heard from Marissa since the day he signed the papers. She disappeared from my life, and I was fine with that. Until a week ago. It was a regular Tuesday evening. I was sitting in my quiet apartment, enjoying the solitude, when my phone buzzed. I glanced at the screen and froze. Her name was staring back at me. Marissa. After all these years, she was calling me. My hands shook as I picked up the phone. "Eric," she said, her voice trembling, "I need to talk to you." And that was when my world, once shattered, began to crack open again. "Marissa," I muttered, my voice barely above a whisper. Her name felt foreign on my tongue after so many years, like saying it would summon something dark and unresolved. "Eric," she repeated, this time more urgently, "please, don't hang up. I need to explain." Explain? What was there to explain after all this time? My mind raced with 1,000 thoughts, most of them bitter. I buried her and the chaos she caused in the furthest corner of my life, and now she was clawing her way back to the surface. "I don't think there's anything left for us to talk about," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Please," she begged, her tone cracking. "It's about what happened back then, about him." The mention of him instantly reignited the old anger I'd fought so hard to extinguish. That faceless man who had been the final blow to everything I believed in. I clenched the phone so tightly I thought it might shatter. "You have 5 minutes," I said coldly, "and then I'm hanging up." There was a pause, as if she hadn't expected me to give her even that much. Then she began to speak, her voice shaky but deliberate. I know I don't deserve this chance, but I need you to hear me out. I need you to know what happened after I left. It's not what you think. Not what I think. I cut in, my voice rising. Marissa, I think you destroy our marriage. Lead to my face and walked out on me for another man. Am I missing something? She sighed, to sound heavy with guilt. Or maybe just exhaustion. I won't deny any of that, Eric. I was selfish, reckless, a horrible person. The what happened after she trailed off, and for a moment, I thought she might hang up herself. After what? I demanded. After the affair ended, she said softly. After he left me. I couldn't stop myself from scoffing. Oh. So it didn't work out with Prince Charming. What a shocker. Why do I care? Her voice hardened slightly, the guilt giving way to defensiveness. You don't have to care, but I'm telling you because I need to. I need to tell someone what I've been through, and you're the only one who knows the truth about how it all started. I don't know you anything, I snapped, the words spilling out before I could stop them. I know, she said quietly, but you deserve to know what happened. The man I left you for. He was married, too. Remember, he told me he was going to leave his wife for me. Promised me the world. I believed him, Eric. I was stupid enough to think I was special to him. And let me guess, I said, my voice dripping with sarcasm. He didn't leave his wife. Worse, she replied. He used me. Kept me as his little secret for a while. And then when his wife found out, he dumped me to save his marriage. I was nothing to him. For a brief moment, I felt a flicker of satisfaction. She had gotten exactly what she deserved. But it was quickly drowned out by the flood of old memories and pain she had dredged up. Why are you telling me this now? I asked, trying to understand her angle. Because I need your help, she admitted, her voice cracking again. Eric, I'm in trouble. He's back in my life, and I don't know who else to turn to. I froze. Back in your life? What are you talking about? There was another long pause. When she spoke again, her voice was barely audible. He found me a few weeks ago. At first, I thought he wanted to make amends. But it's not that. He's threatening me. He says I owe him for what happened all those years ago. Owe him, I repeated, my confusion quickly turning to anger. For what? For ruining his life, she said bitterly. He blames me for everything. For his wife leaving him. For his career falling apart. He says I have to pay him back. And Eric, he's serious. I think he's been following me. I didn't know whether to laugh or scream. This was classic Marissa, pulling me back into her chaos just when I thought I'd escaped it for good. Why would I help you? I asked, my voice cold. Because you're the only one who knows what kind of man he really is, she replied. And because I think he's dangerous. Dangerous. The word hung in the air like a storm cloud. I didn't know what to say. Part of me wanted to hang up and never think about her again. But another part of me, the part that still remembered the good times, however few and far between they were, couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't over. Eric, she said softly, breaking the silence, please, if not for me, then for yourself. You deserve closure as much as I do. I didn't respond. I just sat there, gripping the phone, as the ghost of our past came roaring back to life. I don't know what possessed me to agree to meet her. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe it was the need to finally see for myself the woman who had once been my world and who had destroyed it so completely. Or maybe, deep down, I wanted answers to questions I didn't even realize I'd been carrying all these years. We decided to meet at a small coffee shop in the next town over. Neutral ground, public, safe. I arrived early, of course. The years hadn't cured me of my need to be overly prepared for everything. And I wanted the upper hand if she showed up late. Her worst didn't show up at all, but she did. When she walked in, it was like time had collapsed on itself. Marissa still had that commanding presence, the kind that made everyone in the room glance her way, even if they didn't know why. But she wasn't the same. Her once flawless posture was slightly hunched, her confident stride a little hesitant, and her eyes, they carried a way I'd never seen before. She spotted me and hesitated for a moment before walking over. Eric, she said, almost breathlessly, as she slid into the seat across from me. I didn't respond right away. I just studied her, trying to reconcile this woman with the one I remembered. You've changed, I said finally, my tone neutral. She gave a hollow laugh. I could say the same about you. I wasn't sure if it was meant as a compliment or an insult, but I let it slide. "All right," I said, leaning back in my chair. "You've got my attention. Talk." She took a deep breath, her hands trembling slightly as she wrapped them around the coffee cup the waiter had just placed in front of her. "I know I'm probably the last person you want to see, and I don't blame you for that, but I had nowhere else to turn. You've made that clear," I said, my voice sharp. "What I don't understand is why you think I'd care." Her face fell, and for a moment, I thought she might start crying, but she didn't. Instead, she straightened up and met my gaze. "Because whether you want to admit it or not, you're the only person who knows what I've been through. You're the only one who's seen how this man can manipulate people, destroy lives. I thought I could handle him on my own, but I can't." I stared at her, trying to decide if I believed her. "You're going to have to give me more than that, Marissa. What exactly is he threatening you with?" She looked away, biting her lip. "He has photos, messages, things from when we were together, things that could ruin me if they got out." I felt my jaw clenched. Of course, it was blackmail. Classic scumbag behavior. "And what does he want?" I asked. "Money," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "He says I owe him for what happened to his marriage, his career. He lost everything after his wife found out about us, and now he's blaming me." I couldn't help but laugh bitterly. "So let me get this straight. He cheated on his wife, destroyed his own life, and now he's holding you responsible. Sounds like you picked a real winner." Her face flushed, but she didn't argue. "I know I made a mistake, Eric. More than one. But I didn't deserve this, and I don't know what to do." For a moment, I considered walking away. This wasn't my problem. She wasn't my problem. But then a thought struck me. If he had these so-called photos and messages, was it possible I was in them, too? Had Marissa's betrayal been even more public than I'd realized? "Does he have anything on me?" I asked suddenly. Her eyes widened, and she shook her head quickly. "No. Nothing like that. He only kept things between us. But Eric, he's relentless. He won't stop until he gets what he wants." I leaned back, running a hand through my hair. "So why come to me? Why not go to the police?" She hesitated, and I could see the shame in her expression. "Because I don't trust them. He's connected. He knows people. If I go to the police, it could make things worse." This was sounding worse by the minute. Part of me wanted to walk out the door and never look back. But another part, the part that still remembered the version of her I had loved, couldn't ignore the desperation in her voice. "All right," I said finally. "I'll help you. But not for you, Marissa. I'm doing this for me. I want to make sure this bastard doesn't have anything he can use to drag me into this mess." Her relief was palpable, and for a moment, I thought she might reach across the table to grab my hand. But she didn't. She just nodded. "Thank you, Eric. I promise. I'll make this right." I wasn't sure I believed her. But as I sat there, listening to her lay out the twisted details of her current nightmare, I realized one thing. I was already in too deep to back out now, and I had a sinking feeling that this was only the beginning. Helping Marissa felt like walking into a minefield. Every instinct screamed at me to stay away, but I couldn't ignore the situation, whether out of lingering guilt, curiosity, or some misplaced sense of responsibility. I wasn't sure. The first step was simple enough, understanding exactly what we were dealing with. She gave me the man's name, David Reynolds. I remembered it from our divorce, whispered on lips that weren't mine. I couldn't believe I was now digging into the same man who had torn my life apart. Marissa claimed David had resurfaced recently, showing up unannounced at places she frequented. Her gym, her workplace, even the grocery store. He never directly approached her, but made sure she knew he was there. Then came the threatening messages, cryptic at first, escalating into demands for money. She showed me some of the texts, and they were enough to send a chill down my spine. "You owe me everything, Marissa. Pay up, or the world will know what kind of woman you really are." "Have you paid him anything yet?" I asked her. "No," she said quickly, shaking her head, "but I'm running out of time. He's threatening to show up at my work. If that happens, I'll lose my job." The more she talked, the more this whole situation reeked of manipulation. David wasn't just holding her past over her head. He was actively trying to destroy her. Part of me thought she deserved it. The other part of me wondered just how dangerous this man really was. "Do you know where he's staying?" I asked. "I think he's living in the same city," she said, her voice hesitant. "He mentioned something about a motel on one of his messages, but he didn't say where." I sighed. This wasn't going to be easy. All right, I'll look into it. But if I'm going to help you, you need to be honest with me. No more half-truths. No more lies. Got it? She nodded, her eyes wide. I promise. I wasn't sure I believed her, but for now, it would have to do. Later that night, I sat in my apartment, scrolling through the texts and photos she'd sent me. It was surreal, seeing this part of her life I never wanted to know about. There were photos of David taken from afar, broad-shouldered, well-dressed, and with a look in his eyes that made my stomach turn. He looked like the kind of man who thrived on control, who enjoyed watching people squirm. The more I stared at his face, the angrier I got. This was the man who had ruined my marriage, humiliated me, and walked away unscathed. Now he was back, wreaking havoc again. I decided I needed answers. The next morning, I called an old friend of mine, Jake, who worked as a private investigator. We hadn't spoken in years, but he owed me a favor. If anyone could dig up dirt on David Reynolds, it was Jake. Eric, this sounds messy, Jake said after I explained the situation. Are you sure you want to get involved? I don't have a choice, I replied. Just find out where he's staying and anything else you can dig up. All right, Jake said with a sigh. Give me a couple of days. Hanging up the phone, I felt a strange mix of dread and determination. I had no idea what I was walking into, but one thing was certain. I wasn't going to let David destroy what little peace I had left. What I didn't realize was that the peace was already gone. 2 days later, Jake called me back with an update. Eric, I found him, he said, his voice low. He's staying at a rundown motel on the edge of town, the kind of place where no one asks questions. What else do you know about him? I asked, pacing my apartment. Jake hesitated. This guy's trouble. He's been in and out of legal issues for years. Fraud, harassment, even a restraining order from his ex-wife. But nothing ever seems to stick. He knows how to play the system. The news didn't surprise me, but it didn't make me feel any better either. Does he have a job? A way to support himself? Not that I can see, Jake said. My guess is he's living off whatever he can squeeze out of people. And Eric, I think Marissa's not the only one he's blackmailing. That stopped me in my tracks. What do you mean? I found some connections to other women. Similar situations, Jake explained. Affairs, messy breakups, threats of exposure. He seems to have a pattern, but he's smart. He keeps just enough distance to avoid crossing the line into outright extortion. My blood boiled as I listened. This wasn't just about Marissa anymore. This guy was a predator and he needed to be stopped. Send me the address of the motel, I said. Jake hesitated. Eric, don't do anything stupid. This guy's dangerous. I'm not planning on confronting him. I lead. I just need to see him for myself. Jake sighed but gave me the address. Be careful, all right? That evening, I drove to the motel, a grimy, low-lit place that looked like it hadn't been updated since the 80s. I parked a few blocks away and walked over, keeping my head down. I didn't know what I was looking for, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I needed to be there. As I approached the motel, I spotted him almost immediately. David Reynolds. He was leaning against the railing outside a second-floor room, smoking a cigarette, even from a distance. I could see the smug confidence in his posture, like he owned the place. I ducked behind a parked car, watching him. He didn't look worried or stressed, which told me he thought he was untouchable. That only fueled my anger. Suddenly, the door to his room opened and a woman stepped out. She was younger than Marissa, maybe mid-20s, and she looked nervous. David said something to her, and she nodded quickly before hurrying down the stairs and out of sight. My stomach churned. Another victim, or something worse. I stayed there for what felt like hours, watching as he went about his evening like he didn't have a care in the world. Finally, I forced myself to leave. I had seen enough for one night. Back home, I called Marissa. I found him, I said without preamble. Her sharp intake of breath was audible through the phone. Where? He's staying at a motel on the edge of town. Looks like he's got plenty of free time to harass people, I said bitterly. Eric, what are you going to do? She asked, her voice trembling. I don't know yet, I admit it, but I'm not letting this guy get away with it. There was a pause, and then she said something I wasn't expecting. Be careful, Eric. He's not the kind of man who backs down easily. Her words lingered in my mind long after the call ended. I didn't need her warning to know I was walking into dangerous territory, but I couldn't stop now. Something had to be done, and if no one else was willing to do it, then it was up to me. The next morning, I woke up with a sense of purpose I hadn't felt in years. It was a dangerous kind of energy, the kind that clouds judgment, but I didn't care. David Reynolds had gotten away with too much for too long, and I wasn't going to let him manipulate anyone else, least of all me. I spent hours piecing together a plan. Jake had already given me the tools I needed. Information on David, his habits, and his weaknesses. It wasn't hard to see where he was vulnerable. David lived off fear and intimidation, but men like him always underestimated the people they targeted. My first step was to gain leverage. If David was blackmailing other women, I needed to prove it. I called Jake again. Jake, I need everything you can find on the other women he's been involved with. Names, details, anything, I said. Jake hesitated. Eric, this is getting out of hand. Are you sure you want to go down this road? I'm already on it, I replied firmly. If you don't want to help, I'll figure it out myself. There was a long pause before Jake's sigh. All right, I'll see what I can dig up, but promise me you won't do anything stupid. I'll be fine, I lead. While I waited for Jake's findings, I drove back to the motel. This time, I wasn't just watching. I needed evidence. I parked far enough away to avoid suspicion and walked around to the back of the building. There was a narrow alley behind the motel lined with dumpsters and overgrown weeds. I found David's car easily enough, a black sedan that screamed midlife crisis. As I crouched near the vehicle, I noticed something unusual. There was a notebook lying on the passenger seat, partially obscured by an old jacket. It looked like the kind of notebook you'd use to jot down details, names, numbers, schedules. My pulse quickened. If I could get my hands on that notebook, it might have everything I needed. But breaking into his car was risky. Too risky for now. I snapped a few photos of the car and its license plate before slipping away. I didn't want to push my luck. Jake called me later that evening with an update. Eric, I've got some names for you, he said. 3 women who've had run-ins with David in the past few years. 2 of them filed restraining orders, and 1 even reported him for harassment. I'm sending you their details now. I opened the email he sent and scanned the names. One of them caught my eye. Hannah Klein. She lived in the same city as us. Do you have an address for her? I asked. Yeah. But Eric, I just want to talk to her. I interrupted. Jake sighed. Fine, I'll send it over, but be careful. This guy isn't playing games. The next day, I found myself standing outside Hannah Klein's modest apartment building. I wasn't sure what I was expecting. A scared, broken woman, maybe. But when she opened the door, I was met with a fiery, determined gaze. Can I help you? She asked, her tone cautious, but not fearful. My name's Eric, I said. I need to talk to you about David Reynolds. Her expression darkened instantly. What about him? I think he's targeting my ex-wife now, I explained. And I need to know what he's done to you. Hannah hesitated for a moment before stepping aside and letting me in. Over the next hour, she told me her story. It was eerily similar to Marissa's, an affair that spiraled into blackmail and manipulation. David had used photos, messages, and empty threats to keep her under his thumb for over a year. She'd finally gone to the police, but by the time they got involved, he had vanished. He thrives on fear, Hannah said. He wants you to feel like there's no way out. But the truth is, he's not as powerful as he wants you to think. Once you stand up to him, he backs down. Her words gave me some hope, but they also made me realize just how dangerous David was. He thrived on control, and if someone threatened that control, he wouldn't hesitate to retaliate. Thank you, Hannah, I said as I stood to leave. You've been a big help. She gave me a small, sad smile. Be careful, Eric. Men like him don't go down without a fight. As I walked back to my car, her words echoed in my mind. I knew she was right. If I was going to take David down, I needed to be prepared for whatever came next, and deep down, I knew this was only the beginning of the fight. Hannah's story stayed with me long after I left her apartment. It confirmed what I already suspected. David wasn't just a predator, he was a coward. He relied on intimidation and manipulation. But when someone pushed back, he crumbled. That was my plan now, to push back, hard. Over the next few days, I worked with Jake to gather as much dirt on David as possible. Between his legal troubles, his history with other women, and the information Marissa provided, we had a decent arsenal, but I needed more. I decided to take a calculated risk. I bait David into exposing himself, forcing him to show his hand. It was dangerous, but if it worked, I'd have the leverage I needed to stop him for good. The first step was simple enough. I had Marissa text him, pretending to agree to his demands. "David, let's meet," she wrote, her hands shaking as she typed. "I'll bring the money, but I need to make sure you'll leave me alone after this." He replied within minutes. "Smart girl. Meet me tomorrow night at 8 p.m. at the motel. Bring everything, or this gets ugly." Marissa looked at me, her face pale. "Are you sure this is a good idea?" "No. I admit it. But it's the only way to get him to slip up." The next evening, I parked a block away from the motel and waited. Jake had given me a small recording device to capture everything, and I'd coach Marissa on what to say. The plan was simple: get David to incriminate himself, and then we'd have enough evidence to take to the police. Marissa walked into the motel at exactly 8 p.m. I watched her from a distance, every muscle in my body tense. This was the moment of truth. A few minutes later, I saw David step out onto the balcony outside his room. He greeted Marissa with that same smug, predatory grin I'd seen in his photos. She handed him a bag, empty, but made to look like it was full of cash. As they talked, I moved closer, staying out of sight. My heart was pounding so loudly I was sure they'd hear it. "You've made the right choice, Marissa," David said, his voice dripping with condescension. "Once I've got what I need, this whole thing will go away. You can go back to your pathetic little life, and I won't bother you again." "And what about the others?" Marissa asked, her voice steady despite the fear in her eyes. "What others?" he replied, his tone suddenly sharp. "The other women you've done this to," she pressed. "You've ruined their lives, just like you're ruining mine." David laughed, a cold, hollow sound. "Oh, come on, Marissa. Don't act like you're some kind of saint. You were more than willing to play along when it suited you. You're all the same, desperate, weak, and easy to manipulate." I clenched my fists, every fiber of my being screaming at me to intervene, but I couldn't. "Not yet." Marissa took a deep breath. "What about Eric? Does he deserve this too?" David's expression darkened. "Eric's irrelevant. He was irrelevant the moment you walked out on him. If he gets in my way, he'll regret it." That was all I needed to hear. I stepped out of the shadows, my voice cold and steady. "Is that so, David?" He froze, his eyes widening in shock. "Eric, what the hell are you doing here?" "Watching you dig your own grave," I said, holding up the recording device. "Every word you just said. It's all here. The blackmail, the threats, the manipulation. It's over." For the first time, David looked genuinely scared. He glanced at Marissa, then back at me, his confident facade crumbling. "You think you can take me down?" he sneered, though his voice wavered. "You don't know who you're messing with." "No," I said, stepping closer. "You don't know who you're messing with." He lunged for me, but I was ready. I dodged his swing and shoved him against the wall, pinning him in place. "This ends now," I growled. "You're going to leave Marissa alone. You're going to leave everyone alone, or I'll make sure the cops, the press, and every person you've ever wronged knows exactly who you are." David glared at me, but he didn't fight back. He knew he'd lost. "You're making a mistake," he muttered. "No," I said, stepping back. "The only mistake was thinking you could get away with this forever." I turned to Marissa. "Let's go." As we walked away, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. For the first time in years, I felt like I had taken back control, but I also knew it wasn't over. Not yet. David might have been cornered, but men like him didn't give up easily, and I wasn't about to let my guard down. I didn't sleep that night. Even though I had David cornered, I couldn't shake the feeling that he'd find a way to wriggle out of it. Men like him always did. Marissa, on the other hand, seemed more relieved than I expected. For the first time since this nightmare started, she looked almost at peace. The next morning, I met Jake at his office to hand over the recording. He listened to the entire thing, shaking his head as David's smug voice filled the room. "This is solid," Jake said when it was over. "If the cops hear this, he's done." "You think they'll actually do something?" I asked, skeptical. "They will," Jake assured me, especially with his history. "I'll make sure it gets into the right hands." I wanted to believe him, but I'd seen too many people like David slip through the cracks. Still, I had to try. 2 days later, I got the call. "It's done," Jake said. "The police picked him up this morning." He tried to talk his way out of it, but with the recording and the other women coming forward, they had more than enough to hold him. Relief washed over me like a wave. "So that's it for now," Jake said cautiously. "But keep your guard up. Guys like him don't go down without a fight. If he gets out, he might come after you. I'll be ready, I said firmly. That evening, Marissa called me. Eric, she began, her voice hesitant. I just wanted to say thank you. I know I didn't deserve your help, but you saved me. I didn't respond right away. Part of me wanted to tell her it wasn't about saving her. It was about standing up to someone who had torn my life apart, but I didn't have the energy to argue. What are you going to do now? I asked instead. I don't know, she admitted. Maybe leave town. Start fresh somewhere else. After everything that's happened, I just want to move on. I nodded, even though she couldn't see it. That's probably for the best. There was a long pause before she spoke again. Eric, I'm sorry for everything. I know I can't undo the past, but I hope someday you can forgive me. I let her words hang in the air. Forgiveness was a nice idea, but I wasn't there yet. Maybe I never would be. I hope you find what you're looking for, Marissa. I said finally. Goodbye, goodbye. Eric, she whispered, and then the line went dead. I stood there for a while, staring at my phone. The chapter with Marissa, with David, with all the pain and betrayal, was finally closed. It wasn't the clean break I had once dreamed of, but it was enough. For the first time in years, I felt a strange sense of freedom. I didn't know what the future held, but I knew one thing. I wouldn't let the past define me anymore. And as I stepped outside, feeling the cool evening breeze against my face, I realized that sometimes, the only way to move forward is to leave the wreckage behind.